name's Colin Maynard. I'm the Director of Communications and Public Policy at Rex. I'm really excited to be here talking with Rex's analytics teams this afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and telling us just a little bit about your team's work day in, day out.
Sweet. I'll go ahead and start. I'm Scott. I'm a business analyst here at Rex. I work on the analytics team under Chris Holloman.
I'm Sanhita Joshi. I also work on the analytics team. I'm a data scientist at Rex, and I pretend to be a little bit of software engineer, a bit of a data engineer at times, but mainly I'm a data scientist.
Great.
And I'm Chris Holloman. I'm the director of the analytics team, and our team is responsible primarily for helping the business make the right kinds of decisions driven by data. So we analyze the data that Rex collects internally. We analyze data from markets and make sense of all that stuff to understand where Rex's processes are running smoothly, where we can improve things, and how we should react to what's happening in the market.
Wonderful. Let's just jump right into the questions then. I think every company in this country is dealing with the effects of COVID-19. It's been this massive kind of black swan event that's really had an impact at every level of business. But I don't think anyone talks about just the analytics side. So I'm really excited about this conversation. Can you just talk to us a little bit about what you all are seeing as it relates to COVID-19?
Sure, I'll jump right in on that. And I mean, describing it as a black swan event is, pretty accurate. It's something that we haven't seen before. And so we have to pay special attention to all the data we're seeing. And we're attaching interpretations to things, but when you don't have replication, it's, tough to do. Obviously we're seeing a downturn in transactions. So both, fewer sellers coming onto the market and fewer buyers ready to make a move and buy a house. We're seeing a lot of movement online. So a lot more people shopping around on our website, shopping around on Zillow, doing showings online, as well as doing consultations to set prices and things like that online. Those are the trends that we're seeing. Most interestingly, though, we looked recently and saw that things are springing back pretty quickly. People are becoming more interested or more comfortable in having people in their home, especially for consultations. Still quite a bit of resistance to having strangers come into their home and look around. So I think virtual showings will stick around for a while to come.
That's wonderful. Anyone else on the team would like to jump in on that question?
Yeah, definitely. I think to add on to Chris's notion about virtual showings, we're seeing this nice kind of parabolic shape in overall volume. You see this big slowdown in the cyclical kind of way the economy saw in April, and this kind of nice ramp up in our total volume at the top of our funnel. Virtual showings themselves are interesting of discussion. I think in a lot of ways, whether or not we should keep them around, continuing as the economy comes back to normal. They have a high value for us, or a high return in terms of high convenience for everyone. Everyone can sit at home and look at all of the homes, as well as a low cost. I think in terms of getting people to a home, it's not so hard to have a recording of sorts or a 3D virtual tours, which is becoming more and more popular. And so, yeah, it's pretty interesting seeing the slowdown to ramp up to almost in some ways in volume to previous in February kind of counts, but I do think some part of that might be towards pent-up spring demand and summer seasonality.
Let me ask a follow-up really quick to that. So that you talked about being folks being pent up. Do our analytics give you the opportunity to read or evaluate how motivated a buyer or perhaps someone taking a tour might be in purchasing?
Yeah, I can definitely answer that one. In terms of that, we follow this metric called multi-visit. That's if someone's visits virtually and then goes and follows up with a virtual, an in-person showing, we find that it has a higher conversion rate, those two tied together. And so what you'll see is someone taking a chance on a virtual showing, becoming interested, following up with a hotter or a more stronger lead, in an in-person showing and then following up with an offer on a home.
That's great. It's great to have those tools available. I was just really encouraged to see how, a quarter of the homes that went into escrow were all done from virtual tours explicitly. So there seems to be this greater interest and conversion rate when it comes to that right now. Chris, can you maybe just speak a little bit about just from the side of the buyer side? Are you getting into like, I don't want you to speak on their behalf, but can you maybe just give us a little bit of what you think might be motivating buyers during this kind of, as we talked about, a black swan event?
It's tough to know what's motivating buyers at any time. I think, one thing we can say is that we're seeing only very serious buyers actually going out and doing, especially in-person showings at this point. Great. Conversion rates from showings to offers seem to be going up across the board. People aren't venturing out and certainly not going to open houses just to look around and see what's on the market at this point. So, hard to speak of motivation, but we can say that the ones who are going out are people who feel the need to purchase in the short term and can't push this off and wait until it seems like the pandemic is under control.
That's great. So let's just talk about the broader real estate market. How is Rex doing compared to the traditional MLS?
Yeah, we've been monitoring. We always benchmark against the MLS. It's certainly the biggest place to look for homes for the time being. Really interestingly, Rex has held very steady compared to the MLS. So we've seen drops of 50% in some markets in terms of the number of listings that are on the market with the MLS at a time of year, as Scott pointed out, that usually things are on a steady increase as we move into the summer selling season. Instead, what we've seen is a big drop in MLS listings while Rex holds steady in almost all of its markets. I think of our almost 30 markets, we've had 3 or 4 that have shown drops and not nearly as big as what's happened on the MLS.
That's great. A little follow-up to that question, actually. I know we launched in several new markets last year before COVID-19. Is the analytics team ramped up in all of those markets? Do you feel like you're getting really useful strategic data from those newer markets as well?
Yeah, I do feel like we are. I mean, I think we do so much prep work before we launch into a new market, and all of our analytics are geared so they automatically absorb information in new markets as we move into them. Rex certainly does a strong marketing push as we go into a new market. And so, yeah, we've seen those ramping up steadily, even in Atlanta, which we launched in February, right ahead of when things really started shutting down. We've seen steady growth. Right. In terms of new listings and showings there. So yeah, things have been launching just fine. One of our newest markets from last year, Jacksonville, Florida, is, growing really fast and performing really strongly as well.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. I know we were talking to some folks about the work in the tri-state area in New York, and just to hear, some newer projects going on there, and to see the growth rate matching what we're doing nationally is just really encouraging.
Yeah, New York was, I think, our 3rd market that we expanded into, and our 2nd state. And so it's definitely, as the sort of the epicenter of the pandemic in the United States, has been a true test of our ability to continue functioning under difficult circumstances. And I think it's been encouraging that the model continues to work there.
Yeah. So talk about difficult circumstances. You all are working remotely. I'm here in Austin, and you all are working from home all over. And so ask each of you, Sanhita, you want to kick us off? Tell me what it's like working from home during this time.
Well, my first reaction to that was, well, it's quiet, which is nice. And then probably it was the second day I realized I miss working with these two, Scott and Chris, because it's a ton of fun to work with people who you enjoy to work with or share sense of humor with. Also, it's not like a lone wolf sort of projects that we work on. We generally work as a team in collaboration, not just with us 3 software teams and our product teams and operations, of course. And I have to be cognizant of the fact that I don't overhear any chatter at work, which is work related itself. So I hear a lot of information, and that's so have to be more proactive about asking questions. Or I don't know what this is, or maybe I should communicate this information to someone else that we made this decision, which otherwise I would just share it with Chris and Scott over coffee, or just walk towards the conference room.
Right. So over communicating is a good thing.
Of course.
Great. Chris, Scott, you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, definitely. I think over communication is huge and is really available when you're a tech-enabled company. You have this agility to move into communicating at all times and finding the new routine, being at home, and understanding what everyone else's needs are based on constant Slack messages. And that's the only real way you can get a proxy for what being in the office and those spillover conversations might be at home. So.
Great. Chris,
as far as as far as I go, I mean, I think it's a shift in terms of the kinds of productivity you get, so you have to think about the fact you're going to have more unbroken stretches of time where you can really focus, and you have to make good use of those. And you're going to lose that chatter, right? So I think when we're in the office, Scott, Sanhita, and I literally sit in what is probably, 40 square feet of space in the office. I'm actually a huge advocate of being in an open office because I actually really like that, being very close to the people that I'm working with. And that might be something that we lose as part of this pandemic. I think at all companies, people are going to be looking at, open office plans and how that'll change. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you have to use the technology well. There have been kinks to work out. I think that it's a lot easier sometimes to just tune into the work you need to get done and not think about, hey, I should just take 15 minutes and check in with the other people on my team, even if I don't have something specific I need to ask them about. It's that sort of like, oh yeah, well, I've got you. Let me just throw this idea at you kind of conversation that we miss.
Right. So let me just ask you a follow-up to that. In my world, when someone takes a red pen to my press releases, it can be a little personal, right? It's we take it seriously in the PR world, but when you guys are ready to push out a project, you're comfortable with the data. How do the three of you kind of come to the final conclusion of we love this number, it's accurate, we're going to put it out? Walk me through that process.
Well, rather than loving the numbers, I think I would go the other way. I love the problems. That is, I constantly keep complaining that we need to work on this bit or make it more easier. Let's say about reg services, that right now we have to write a whole bunch of ginormous queries to get some useful data out of that. And I just constantly keep whining that we need to create another table view in our databases that would make our lives easy eventually. So I don't think I actually love a particular number or a particular conclusion from that. It's I guess it's the part of the work that we have to live with uncertainty. In that sense, it's helping to cope with the situation of COVID-19. But it in a sense, it's giving me enough time to work on long-term projects or which go for probably months as well.
Awesome. Scott, how do you take it when Chris takes a red pen to all your calculations?
Yeah, I work in KPI tracking, so there's a lot of things where it's performance based, and so my numbers better be clean and cold cut. And so in terms of that, it's kind of like, hey, this is an interesting question. This is how I solve the problem. Do you agree? Do you disagree? If you disagree, let's continue to work towards what we feel comfortable with reporting to the company. We've actually implemented a recent change in terms of verification of these numbers. And I'll go ahead and let Chris elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up, Colin, the idea of review and sort of, occasionally taking it personally. I think as somebody who codes, you don't, you learn that what we call pull requests, which is a request that this code be accepted into the code base as correct. That's a fact of life. Nothing gets into our code base without somebody else going over it. And it's like an academic journal. It's never accepted on the first submission. It's
Sure.
always sent back for revision with comments. And I think after you've gone through that process 3 or 4 times, you realize that you're not perfect and you're going to need somebody to review, and we're all stronger because of it.
Yep.
And then, I think analytics is in the unique position that we need to have good code. And then we also need to have good integration with the business in terms of how we're reporting numbers out and making sure those are right. And that's what Scott was referring to as our analytics verification process, where we, one person does an analysis and then they pass it off to the other person to check it over with a fine-tooth comb. And part of that is making sure it's consistent with other metrics that we have, other things that we found in other analyses, and making sure that we're reporting consistent and correct information.
Well, great. Why don't you all just share a little bit about what you're working on? What's a future project that you guys are all tackling right now?
Sure. I think one of the most exciting ones we're doing is called Rexonomics, and Sanhita's our data science lead on it. So I'll let her talk about it.
Oh, it's a fun project. So the technical part of it, or the boring part for you, might be we're going to build Bayesian probabilistic graphical models for that. And once that's all built, there will be a fancy display. So it wouldn't be as boring as it might sound right now. So the fun about Rexonomics project is that let's say we start advertising for our future sellers right now in this week, and then they would be our leads, let's say this week or the next week. And eventually some of those, they would be our sellers, and their houses would go live a few weeks from now, and the buyers would come in possibly a few months from now. And that means we would make money when the house gets sold, let's say in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months time since we advertised. And how to tie up that marketing spend right now to the revenue that we would make in 2 months time or 4 months time. That's a fun part that we need to figure out. And that's what I'm working on. And we call that Rexonomics. So there is a time component to this fun problem. There is Rex services that need to be included in our revenue. And also, of course, the buyer-seller sites have to be joined.
So it sounds
fun Rexonomics project.
Right. So it sounds like predictive analytics that help the business prepare resources and allocate time to upcoming projects. Is that accurate?
That's part of it, but also that is, if we spend let's say $100 today, how much money would we make off of that in 4 months' time? That's one thing. And also, instead of $100 in, let's say, one market area, if we spend $50 in 2 market areas, that same money in 2 different market areas, or in the span of 2 weeks, how would that affect our revenue? That this project should be able to answer some of those kind of questions as well.
It's very interesting. Scott?
Yeah, Scott? It's something that's. Sorry, I was just going to say it's a pretty ambitious project in that it ties together lots of different parts of the business, right? So not only does it try and pull together this information across time, but it pulls together, financial information on, how we're listing homes and how we're acquiring buyers and sellers and the amount of time, how quickly we can find the right buyer for the right home, those kinds of things. But then, Rex services, so we have home loans that are available to buyers, and we have moving services that are available and all those kinds of things as well. So pulling all that information together into a single cohesive model is really a big thing that hasn't been done before.
Right. So just maybe Scott or Chris or the team, just tell me how the rest of us at Rex or our consumers would benefit from a project like that. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and Sanhita can add on. I think, the biggest benefit will be that we can try out new scenarios, ideas that we have that might, that'll help our sellers to make the decision to go with Rex, or help our buyers find the right home, modifying pricing strategies, things like that. And have a better idea of what the income or what the impact is going to be on the rest of the business before having to test those things out in the market. So it's going to give us a way to sort of, understand all those moving parts, without having to actually, build the whole thing. It's like being able to create a computer model that would let you test a new part on a car without having to construct the entire car and see how well it runs.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's really exciting. Well,
there is a other part of it that I would like to add to that, that generally the criticism about on data science and machine learning and AI is that it's all a black box and you can't see inside what's going on. And this taxonomics is an ambitious project in a sense that we want to make it an explainable AI, that everybody who understands a bit of Rex's business should be able to understand how this model works, or if we tweak this little something, how it affects something downstream. And that's something I personally enjoy as well, that not to keep it hidden behind curtains, that make it explainable, approachable for everybody.
It's really exciting. Thanks so much for sharing that. Right. Well, I would just say thank you to all of you for just the hard work you put in on that side of the business. It's been helpful with the conversations we've had publicly with media and thought leaders, and so really thank you for the quantitative analysis you put into it. I know it's helping our sales team and it's helping our customers as well. So thank you for everything you're doing, and hey, we look forward to seeing you when we all come back in the office.
Yeah, thank you, Colin.
All right, thanks so much.